I sound like I'm in a good mood because I know we're about to have a hell of a show. We're going to kick it off with a little message from Eric Cartman on South Park.
It's on! Race war! Race war! Race war! Race war's on, everybody! It's going down! It's going down!
All right. Dude, it was so silly over the weekend. I don't know if your social media feed is as just ridiculous as mine, but there were dueling rallies in Frisco on Saturday, all hinging around the Austin Metcalf stabbed by Karmelo Anthony, and I don't have to say allegedly, he admitted to that. Whether or not it will be considered murder or self-defense, still up in the air. But the dueling rallies, all it did was show two sides of the race hustler coin. Now, we are quite familiar with one side of the race hustler coin. That they have rallies all the time. They had rallies in downtown Dallas where 5 policemen got killed. You don't see a whole lot of the other side of the race hustler coin. You forget they exist because you don't even name the leader of the white supremacists in America. Name our leaders. And I don't mean our, like literally like I'm part of it. But like you could say, name some leaders who are race hustlers in the African-American community all the way down the line. Jesse Jackson, the Al Sharptons here locally. Now we got the Dominic Alexander and a few other prominent folks out there. I mean, I wouldn't consider like Jasmine Crockett in there, but I can't even name who their counterpoint is. Who, David Duke? When's the last time David Duke was on TV or ran for office or held a rally that more than 12 people attended? So this is a rare glimpse. And again, you almost forget that these people exist. But the around the corner from Kirkendall Stadium, there was a rally in support of Karmelo Anthony. It says a peaceful rally showing solidarity for our young black child. And then 2 signs are being held up in the flyer. One says drop the charges. The other one says charge Hunter Metcalf. Woo! Okay. I mean, he's okay. That was Saturday, April 19th, 11 a.m. The other rally, I'm looking at the flyer now for it. It says, protect white Americans. Justice for Austin Metcalf. Demand Karmelo Anthony be put back in prison until trial. I guess they mean jail. And then it says peaceful protest, April 19th, also 11 a.m. Frisco, Texas. That's a typo. I'm sure it's supposed to be Frisco, but it says Frisco, Texas. Wakefield High School parking lot. And then there's a little caption down there. It says, stop black violence on white Americans. And at the very bottom of the flyer, it says, protect white Americans was founded by January 6th political prisoner and U.S. Senate candidate Jake Lang, pwaus.com. I wish the other people had a website on their flyer. But so who's this Jake Lang guy that's organizing this protest or the titular head of the Protect White Americans protest? He is a January 6th political prisoner. He was held for something like 1,500 something days for doing something on January 6th. I really didn't dig that much into it because he got pardoned as soon as Donald Trump got back into office. I don't know if he was in jail that whole time, but we had another couple of local people who were January 6th political prisoners, and we've heard their stories. So I guess it's probably not that different for this guy, except now he's running for U.S. Senate. Not here. He's not one of the guys that's trying to unseat John Cornyn. He came all the way in from Florida, which answers the question, where'd that big bus come from? There was a big bus with his face on it, American flag, and it's obviously a campaign bus. So this guy has some level of funding. I don't have a giant traveler sleeper bus like I'm in a rock band or anything, but he did. He showed up. And the reporting on this is terrible, as you would expect. But coming up next, my first guest is going to spell out some of the questions I'm about to ask next, because he was actually there, Tony Ortiz from Current Revolt. Now, how many people were there? It looked like maybe 20 people were there for the rally. There were a bunch of counter-protesters there, too. There were a handful of people covering it. Now, you can tell what the TV people look like because they're all beautiful and their hair looks great and they look all fashionable in their dress. And then there's a bunch of bloggers and people who are kind of considering themselves freelance or journalists of the people who are just not dressed like bums, but jeans and a T-shirt. They look like regular. So it's kind of hard to tell who's actually in support of this rally and who was there to try and get some clicks on their TikTok channel or who was actually reporting on it for some newspaper or some of these second-level websites. And so I really don't have a good answer for you. We'll get that in the next segment. Here is why I am starting the show with it. This audio is just incredible. So Jake Lang's out there, and some guy shows up. I think I've seen this guy before. Bruce Carter, local entrepreneur. He used to be like a Bernie bro, and then he campaigned for Trump in this last election cycle. So I don't know if he's all over the map or had some sort of political awakening, or maybe he's just a political opportunist. But he had a message to deliver to Jake Lang from the father. He pulls out a phone. They call Jeff Metcalf, and then on speakerphone they have a conversation where Jake Lang gives his little spiel. And then when it's the dad's turn to talk, don't worry, Garrett, I bleep this. He completely rejects, the Jeff Metcalf completely rejects Jake Lang because of the racial angle. Now, I'm going to play this, and if you can't understand it, I'll read you the transcript next. But this is what happened on Saturday.
Yes, I am, sir.
My turn to speak. You hear that?
That's called white guilt.
No, let it talk.
You're creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness, sir.
Thanks.
You are creating more Austin Metcalfs
Black
with your
man
weakness.
here, you are being weak. I gotta be honest with you about that, sir.
Oh,
You're
my
being weak.
God.
Condemn your son's killer and the culture that caused it.
Oh, my God. This guy is being like the most magnanimous, Jesus-like, just off Easter weekend, Jesus-like character I've ever seen. His own son's been sacrificed, and he's not willing to say one bad thing about the other family. He's already forgiven the kid. He's now calling and shouting down the people that are trying to make this a racial issue, and I think he's trying to do it on both sides. I don't know if he tried to call the other rally, but I think that might have been why he was there at the press conference last week. What was that, on Thursday? But if you didn't understand what he said, I'm sorry. That's the best audio we had. Actually, my next guest got it, Tony. But he says, you are the effing problem, my friend. This is what Jeff Metcalf said to the organizer of Protect White Americans. He said, you are the effing problem, my friend. You're trying to create more race divide than bridging the gap. I do not condone anything you do. You do not have any bleeping. And then Jake talked over him for a second. And then when it came back to him, you take my son's face off your website. I am not associated with you. And then he started to get talked over in any way, in some way. So I know you could hear what Jake was saying, but that's what the father was saying. Wow. Okay, coming up next, more intimate details from a guy who was actually there on Saturday at the Frisco Protect White Americans rally. Tony Ortiz from currentrevolt.com. I'd like to hear from you, too. What do you think about Protect White Americans rally? Do you think that's the right angle to take at this? Or is it just the less melanated version of race hustling? You may have seen on your social media feed or the news that there were dueling protests in Frisco over the weekend over the Karmelo Anthony situation. One side saying that he needs to be released, not just released, drop the charges. Also that Hunter Metcalf needs to be charged. The other one, Protect White Americans. It was put together, we think, by Jake Lang, a Senate candidate in Florida. Is listed as a peaceful protest, but how many people were there? Was it peaceful? Any arrests? The local news isn't much help, so we'll ask a guy who was actually there. The great Tony Ortiz is back on the James Show from currentrevolt.com, and thank you for going out there. Because, look, number one, you get credit because you have to take time out of your weekend. I know this isn't what you wanted to do with your Easter weekend, and also there is like a level of danger, or at least irritants, with going to cover these people. It's not a fun activity to be a part of. So first off, thank you for going, Tony. Now tell me what you saw. How many people were there?
Yeah, so to clear things up right away, there were what you said is accurate. There was two dueling protests, and for the pro Karmelo Anthony protest that wanted charges dropped and the brother arrested, nobody showed up. Nobody was there. In fact, one of my colleagues showed up.
That's great news.
He said,
fantastic. Okay, good.
And he showed up, and the police were like, "Well, you're at the protest, but nobody's here." So he went over to the pro with the white Protect White Americans rally, and that's where I was stationed. And the good news is that only two people really got hurt, and they both looked like they were part of Antifa. But as far as attendance, there was none. It was very, very ill attended. There were more police and there were more media than there were attendees.
Okay, so in the videos I saw, it looked like there was maybe 16 to 20 people, but I couldn't tell if they were actually there to support the rally or they were just there as counter protesters or podcasters and bloggers and stuff looking to get some footage or legit media. I did see a whole lot of cops there. How many people actually supported the rally? Do we know?
I would say maybe 2 or 3 at most. Everybody there, there was there to grift. Okay, I mean everybody from the media, myself included, to the speakers, to even some of the protesters there. Everybody was there for the reasons that were not related to actually supporting Anthony Metcalf. Okay, so I was there along with other media to get coverage, right? To get clicks, to get views. That's just a fact, right? We have a business to run, and we want to cover the news, right? I'm there for that. Okay, and so is the rest of the media. You had people that were protesting that were there that weren't even there related to the incident itself. There was a guy screaming about T-Mobile and how he hated T-Mobile, and he had signs up and he was screaming the entire time. Totally goofy guy. You had Antifa there that was wearing masks. And they were there just to cause problems.
How many Antifa were there? This is kind of humorous at this point.
Yeah, you had maybe 10 to 12, maybe 10 to a dozen, yeah.
Did I see a guy that got pepper sprayed?
Yeah, so there was an incident where a guy in a MAGA hat was getting in the face and screaming at a rather large woman in a COVID mask about something, and they were screaming at each other. And he screamed at her. She pushed him in the chest, and then she maced him in the face. And of course, police swarmed her. They arrested her. The gentleman I spoke to, and you can see it on our website, he said he's going to file charges. And then one of her Antifa brethren, another masked individual, also very, very heavy set, got in the face of a police officer. He was taken down very aggressively. He was also arrested.
Okay, let's talk about this organizer, though. What do we know about Jake Lang? I saw he's running for Senate in Florida, but is anyone taking him serious? He seems to have some sort of funding because there was a bus there with his face on it. Is he legit?
I would say no, and I'd say that if you are anybody that takes this person serious, maybe you just need to read up a little bit more about him or his intentions.
Well, I don't think he's legit, but does he have a following, I guess would be a better way.
No,
okay.
I'm not saying you are either, but I would say anybody who is, he definitely has a following. I mean, he's a J6er, right? And, say what you want about J6ers, either way, a lot of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them have turned the fact that they were jailed for J6 into something they could profit off of now, like media talking points, and they're trying to become political figures, right? Take, for example, Jake Lang running for office. Now, all of a sudden, he's running for office, and for some reason, he's made his way out to Texas to promote, whatever it is he's promoting, and give all these speeches to an empty parking lot of people, handful of people, and Metcalf sent some guy, some PR guy, to talk to Lang to tell him, like, hey, stop using my son's name for your grift, your bus tour. And I got recording and it's on the website, but they got Metcalf's dad on speakerphone yelling at Jake Lang, telling him, hey, like, stop doing this.
You know what? I had played that in the last segment, but just in case people are joining us, I'll play it real quick again, Tony. Hang on.
Yes, I am, sir. That's called white guilt.
No, let it talk.
You're creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness, sir.
Oh, my God.
Thanks.
All right, so you are the effing problem, my friend. You're trying to create more race divide than bridging the gap. This guy seems to, at every turn, be trying to extend an olive branch. He forgave the killer the day that it happened, and when he was asked to leave, he left from the press conference, and now he's calling in and shouting down this guy who's trying to racialize the killing. This father seems to be kind of a special guy.
Yeah, and people disagree and are disagreeing whether or not, he's taking the right approach and whether he should forgive Karmelo Anthony so easily. And, that's up for debate. But the issue is you've got the father specifically saying, hey, don't do this. And Lang is still insistent on running this grift. And somebody told me the biggest sign of a grifter is when they stop actually having empathy for what they're drifting off of. And you got the father literally telling Lang, "Don't do this," and Lang's turning him around and calling him a traitor and guilty of white guilt, and that he's creating more deaths by being soft on this. And it's just disgusting. Everybody, and I'll tell you this, the feeling from everybody in the group, including some of the people that were hosting the bus for Lang, that it was like, Lang is disgusting. He kept interrupting the father.
Yep.
And he's just intent on running this PR campaign, which again is pathetic. Nobody showed up.
Tony Ortiz, I got to run, but you can check out his great work, currentrevolt.com. Thank you so much for going and getting that great audio, Tony. Appreciate it. You made the show. Coming up, there is a follow-up to what happened at the two rallies, really just one rally. Make no mistake about it. Anyone who is interested in going to either one of these rallies is just absolute poison to our society. But I'll tell you how Jake Lang may still be in trouble with the law just yet. Coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Dueling rallies over the Karmelo Anthony situation and the stabbing death of Austin Metcalf were held in Frisco over the weekend, and it was two sides of the same race-baiting coin. There was one that was in support of Karmelo Anthony, asking that his charges be dropped and Hunter should be charged. And that was so unpopular that no one showed up, or at least when people show up and they don't see anyone else there, they leave. So I imagine there may have been some people that drove by and they're like, I'm not going to be the first person standing in an empty parking lot. So that was a complete embarrassing failure, and almost as grand of a failure as that was the Protect White Americans rally that was happening next to the stadium where the stabbing happened. And as you just heard from my guest, Tony Ortiz, it was sparsely attended with supporters. In fact, there were probably more Antifa there, counter protesters. There's definitely more media and cops there than actual rally supporters. So first off, round of applause. It sounds like our society's getting better. Like when race baiting rallies get zero people, don't get any attendance. That's fantastic news, ladies and gentlemen, because it didn't used to always be like that in American society. Now, Jeff Metcalf, the dad of Austin Metcalf, the kid who was murdered, or we don't know, but the kid who was killed, I should say. Don't want to get sued. He called in and he shouted down the organizer on the spot. That went all over social media all weekend. And then he also had an interview with the New York Post where they didn't put out the audio of this, but in print, the New York Post had this quote from the dad, Jeff Metcalf. It says, "They are all race baiters, effing people that want to spew their narrative for their own agenda. They don't give a bleep about my family, about Karmelo Anthony's family. I want the superintendent to explain to me how you let this white piece of trash on school property where my son was murdered less than 2 weeks ago." That is a quote of Jeff Metcalf, according to the New York Post. Now, it's a lot of sauce there in one quote. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. You know, I haven't heard anyone called like a race traitor in real life until like this weekend. That was something I heard. What was that on American History X? Where I first heard that, like, race traitor. What's even a race traitor? I don't know you anything. Why? Because you're pale? Who said I'm on your team to begin with? Anyway, it's so rare. It's like a novelty. Like, wow, there's an actual racist. This is wild. So now the story isn't over. After the rallies were over, according to the Dallas News, it looks like that Jake Lang, the guy who organized Protect White Americans, jumped the fence and went into the stadium where the stabbing happened. So, oh my goodness, wait a second. He's not allowed to be in there. So I think that's criminal trespass. So the Dallas News asked Frisco ISD, hey, don't you think that's trespassing? And Frisco ISD told the Dallas Morning News on Saturday that they were in the process of filing trespassing charges. So then the media turned to the Frisco Police Department, and Grant, the Frisco police spokesman, confirmed this morning that the police department has been in contact with the school district and taken an offense report regarding the incident, which is under investigation. Also, while Jake Lang was in there, he did a selfie video. I mean, what a disgusting low-life grifter this fella appears to be. Like, everything I said about Dominic Alexander last week, you could just flip the script and put it on this guy this week. He was saying, this is where it happened, and you see this little dark spot over here. I believe this is Austin Metcalf's blood from the murder. Well, it turned out he was on the wrong side of the stadium. He was on the complete opposite side of the stadium where the stabbing actually happened, according to the spokesman from Amanda McCune from Frisco ISD. So, the individual in this video filming on the home side of the stadium. The incident occurred on the visitor side, which can be seen across the field when he turns the camera off himself. They also tried to get Lang for comment on Saturday. I haven't seen any comments from him about this. I actually reached out to him on Twitter and like, hey, you want to come on the show and explain yourself? This is not looking too good. So I don't know. Maybe I should have been a little more judicious, but I have heard nothing back from him either. Your thoughts? 800-288-9227. This is a wild one, isn't it? 800-288-9227. Michelle Weatherford, you're on WBAP. What do you think, Michelle?
Hey, James. I'm just driving, listening to you, and I think that what the dad did is amazing. I think it does set a good standard and just shows people that it doesn't have to be the way that it is a lot of times. But I do wonder if the roles were reversed and if the white boy would have stabbed the black boy, how crazy would it be right now? How much violence would be happening? And it wouldn't just be in Frisco. I feel like it would be all over the United States. And so that does make me sad. And I just wonder if this is actually going to show people that it doesn't have to be that way, or if the next time it happens, if it's the other way around, if it's going to be violent,
Well, I always like when you try and put it in context like that, because you're absolutely right. We don't have to wonder what it would be like. We know the Trayvon Martin situation is probably the closest analog we have to this. And, someone passed along that like 3 years ago, there was a 17-year-old white kid who stabbed to death like a 17-year-old Hispanic kid in a high school bathroom or something to that effect in Central Texas. And that didn't seem to blow up very much. And no, it's an easy context to make, and you're absolutely right. If the roles had been reversed, what would everybody be saying right now? Would there be?
I feel like Frisco would be burning down right now if it's the other way around. I'm just saying.
Well, maybe we're making progress to where that's not going to be the case going forward. Maybe the fact that the two rallies were so sparsely attended means that racism is finally just disappearing over the horizon in our past. And I really hope that the little bit of optimism I feel that these rallies were so sparsely attended is a sign of progress.
I agree so much. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Well, that's no fun when you agree with me all the time. Oh, no, you're right, Michelle. No, you're right, James. No, I agree more. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I mean, I would try and get some racists to call in, but I don't actually know any. Do you? 800-288-9227. You don't have to answer that. But coming up next, the legal analyst on the James Show, Jeremy Rosenthal, is going to explain the situation that's now facing the guy who organized the rally. Is that criminal trespass? What are we going to do? Go arrest him in Florida and extradite him to Texas for jumping a fence? I don't know. Let's ask the legal expert next on the James Show. Gunther sends me a message via Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. He says, Americans deserve better than a Congress that has only worked 25 days out of this entire year. And I told him, you're absolutely right. We can get that number much lower. My next guest is the unofficial legal analyst for the James Show. Jeremy Rosenthal's back on from TexasDefenseFirm.com. Jeremy, I want to start with this criminal trespass that's on the table. The guy that organized the Protect White Americans rally in Frisco on Saturday jumped the fence and did a selfie video in the stadium trying to act like I'm at the crime scene and I'm so cool and I'm getting clicks and whatnot. And Frisco ISD said they are pursuing criminal charges. The Frisco police has confirmed that they've gotten this request and are looking into it. But what can we do for criminal trespass? We can't extradite him from Florida. We can't go get him if he's gone because he's from out of state. He's from Florida.
Okay.
Is anything going to happen with these charges, or would that just prevent him from coming back?
It's a pretty small misdemeanor. That said, you don't really want it on your record. Criminal trespass, when you see it, is usually some kind of mental health thing or something like this. So if I'm an employer and I'm looking at that, I'm thinking the guy's got a screw loose. But the short answer is it can turn into an arrest warrant. And I don't know that Collin County is going to go and, spend the however many dollars it's going to take to drag him from Florida. But
nor should they.
Happen. No, really. I mean, you'd be surprised what they want to spend money to go, to go fight crime with. But no, chances are that's a warrant that's outstanding for a while. And maybe if he comes back to visit, if he's got relatives here, he's not wearing his seatbelt, he's gonna get the ride.
Well, that would be funny, but I don't know. I don't know if that's the most judicious use of our scarce taxpayer resources. Now, in the other, the shooting that happened at Wilmer Hutchins, that bond is still astronomically high. What's going on there?
I mean, when you have these types of shootings, again, when bond is initially set, it's usually sight on scene. Bond, again, to kind of go back to our discussion last week, bond is there to make sure that you show up in trial, but the judge also has a duty to protect the community, and you've got a lot of different magistrates that are in the Metroplex, people who set bond. I don't know how many total in the Metroplex there are probably more than 50 judicial officers that exclusively that's what they do as magistrates to set bond. That's not even counting all the county and district judges. So you're going to always have a really wide-ranging a set of opinions that are out there, and every case ought to be its own snowflake, ought to rise and fall on its own merits.
Oh, I like that metaphor. Now, as the layman, how does this work out with you? Because again, not a lawyer, but I have seen the first 8 seasons of Suits. The bond right now is at $3.1 million, and I think a logical explanation for that would be this kid was trying to kill the principal guy that he shot at. There was some guy that fell, and he went up to him and shot him again at point blank range. And since that kid didn't die, if they let him out, they're pretty much opening the door for him finishing the job. Is that part of the thinking?
I don't know if it's quite that detailed. You give the legal community far too much credit for thinking in detail in full sentences. But future danger and threat to the community it's absolutely front and center. And every judge that you talk to sees themselves on the cover of the Dallas Morning News for, we were easy on one drunk driver. We were easy on one domestic violence case. We were easy on one. We let the wrong guy out of jail, and then they go do something that puts me on the cover of the Dallas Morning News. So judges are typically going to be, they tend to act with a little fear unless or until they're exposed to a lot more of the specifics. Going back to the Karmelo Anthony bond in Collin County, that judge had a hearing. She had a full-blown hearing. She had people who testified. She got to hear actual numbers, actual money amounts, because, again, bond is to secure the appearance. She got to hear a lot more of the nuts and the bolts. So once the judicial officer is exposed to a lot more facts, then it's certainly going to be a little better tailored to the specific case.
All right, great stuff. Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. I appreciate your legal mind.
Have a great day, James.
Thank you, sir. Sometimes it doesn't sound like it's too easy to be a judge out there. You got to make some big decisions that are going to get criticized either way. But, man, that's a huge disparity. $3.1 million for this kid's bail. But it stuck. So, okay. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I certainly understand why they kept it high. I keep him in there, this guy. And actually, coming up next, you're going to hear some heartbreaking audio of this kid. There's a little spell there from when he did the shooting to when he turned himself in. And he made a video, and someone found it and put it on Instagram. And I'll bleep out the cuss words for you. But, man, it almost makes you feel sympathetic because you got to remember, this is a kid. This isn't an adult. This is a kid. And the audio coming up right after the news break on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.